Hi everyone. Today I'm going to show you how I made a sewing machine maintenance book and also how you can create a cover for your sewing machine manual as well. The sewing machine maintenance book uses just a piece of A4 paper and obviously the fabric, but it's small enough that it can fit in your toolbox next to your machine, or it can tuck into a side pocket of a machine cover. It gives details of the model of your machine, the year it was made, what decal design it's got, the serial number, and for my one, I'm using it to record when I've oiled the machine, because obviously if you've got more than one, you start forgetting when it was the last time it was oiled. So it gives you a chance to just record the last time you've oiled them, the last time they were serviced or deep cleaned if you clean them out yourself, and defluffing it as well. Some history or facts or stories about your machine. For example, where I got mine for my birthday. My machine has a hand crank conversion, and my machine's called Mr. Tiny. That's for my featherweight. Some interesting information about your individual machine. So for example, the needle direction, bobbin direction, your happy tension for different materials, what kind of thread it likes, what attachments you have for your particular machine, and then what the current needle is inside your machine. And that's usually what I forget, and I have to take the needle out to work it out. Or what the last time you changed your needle, which is another thing. So I did have a 9014 needle in it. That's the date I put it in. I've since changed it to an 8012, for example. And you can put some information on the back. So that just stays with my machine, and then each machine will have its own little logbook. So I'm going to show you how to make this book, but the same principle with the fabric. You can also do a machine manual cover just to keep your machine manual nice and neat and protected. So for this, you are going to need, I'll move those out the way. You are going to need a piece of A4 paper or letter paper for your printer, some little snips, a pokey outy thing, some clips or pins if you prefer pins, and then 4 pieces of fabric. You'll also need fabric scissors and paper scissors as well. So let me move this out of the way. So for the maintenance book, hopefully this shows up on camera, you are going to need 4 pieces of fabric, 2 in a lining fabric and 2 in an external fabric, and they are 18 centimeters long and 13 centimeters wide. If you are making the manual, then you would still do the same 2 and 2, but your manual measurements would be 16 centimeters by 20 centimeters. So first thing we're going to do is take one external piece of fabric and one of your lining fabric. I haven't got any grip. And we want to just fold them in half. Now you can do this with an iron to get a nice crease, but the heat of your hands will actually create a crease anyway. And then with your fabric scissors, I'm just going to do this just with my hands. You just want to cut them in half. So one is your exterior fabric and one is your lining fabric. And these are the little slip pocket, not slip pockets, but the bit that the manual will slide into. So once you've done that, you want to, I have no grip on my fingers today, put them right sides together Obviously my lining fabric doesn't actually have a right and a wrong side, but my external fabric does. You want to just put them right sides together for both pieces. And then I usually just clip, but you don't have to clip, but I just clip them in place. And first thing we're going to do is just do a 1/4 inch stitch all the way along. So I'm just going to pause the video so I can do that. So once you've got your stitch, they should then look like that for both of them. And then you just want to press the seam allowance open, and you can do this with your fingers, or to get a crisper edge, you just give them a quick iron down, and that will create a nice flat seam. Let me just do that with the other one. And then that's flattened them out, and then you can just fold them over, so that creates a nice edge. And then again, we're just going to give them a quick press for both of those. Then go back to your machine and then just do a top stitch of around 1/8 seam allowance, but you can do it a little bit thinner than that if you wish. So we'll do that next. Okay, so both of those now have a top stitch. Next, take the lining piece. Mine's a hairy one. Take your other lining piece and just fold that in half. You just want to create a crease. And then open it back up. So you should be able to see that on the camera. There's my center crease. And then take each side with the exterior fabric facing upwards and put them either side of that crease about 1/2 inch each side, but you can make that narrower if you want. This is, if I show you on here, it's the gap between this piece and the middle of your book. So I'm doing them around about 1/2 inch. So take some clips and just clip them down initially, but then we're going to turn, I've run out of clips, we're going to turn this upside down because there's a bit of an overlap which we're going to just trim off. So once you're happy with that gap in between this center fold, clip it down, turn it over, and hopefully you can see that on camera. That's my external, my lining fabric, and then my slip pocket is just overhanging. So you just want to trim those off. You can do that with a rotary cutter or on your mat. I'm just going to eyeball it just with my scissors, roughly. Oh no, it's funny. That's better. I'm quite pleased because so far the doorbell hasn't rung and the dog hasn't barked. Okay, so turn that right side back up. Take your exterior fabric and right side facing down, pop that straight on the top, and then reposition your clips. And you can use more clips or pins if you want to. And I'm going to put another one just in. And then on one side, where's my pen? There's my pen. On one side, you're going to leave a turning gap. So I like to just use a biro, and I'm just going to make a mark, probably about 3 inches or so. So I am now going to stitch with a 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way around and back to my other marker, leaving a turning gap. What I try to make sure is that I backstitch at the beginning of this point, and then when I go round I make sure I'm backstitching a few stitches at this one. It just reinforces that turning gap. So I'm going to do that one next. So I've now stitched all the way around, but I've left a turning gap on this side. I know you probably can't see that. Let's see if it can, hopefully you can see that on that side. Next thing to do, just to give you nice crisp corners, is just snip all 4 corners. Try to get it close to your stitching, but not enough to cut the stitching. So that's all 4 corners trimmed, and then trim down your seam allowance to about 1/8, except at your turning gap. So I'm just going to trim it down about that. All the way along. Oh, that was a bit too close. A bit awkward doing this on camera. When you get to your opening, you can start trim from the corner and just trim up like that. Hopefully you can see that. And I'll do the same thing here. So I'm keeping the seam allowance of 1/4 inch here, and then just trim them back just a little bit so that it trims into the corners. So I've done 3 sides. Let me just quickly do this side, and then we're gonna turn it out. And there's 4 layers at this end, so no. Let's get the right turn. And just ease it out. Flippity flippity. And what I like to do is just initially I just use my fingers just to poke the majority of that corner out, and then we can get the pokey outy thing and just poke that out a bit better. Just be gentle in that corner, because the amount of times I've poked the corner right through, especially if I'm using a non-pokey outy like a biro, and it will just punch a hole straight through your fabric. So that will do. Next thing is to give that a good press, just so that it all sits nice and flat, but fold in. I'm going to have to lift my fingers to do this because I can't do it. Just fold in your turning gap. And if you've turned in, now you can pin this while you're ironing the rest of it, but I like to get that side pressed first, and having to do this the wrong way around. I didn't turn my iron on. But if you press your turning gap side first, then you don't necessarily need to clip that when we go back to the sewing machine. once that's had a nice press, next just go back to your sewing machine and then just do a top stitch all the way around. So that's now top stitched, and the final thing to do, again do this with the iron, it's just neater, is just fold it in half and just press that down. And then there is your little cover for your book. Very similar, or actually exactly the same as say an oyster pass holder or a bus pass holder, same sort of thing, it's just a bit larger. But that's that bit done. Next we're going to do the actual book, which is easy, so I'm going to just move that there so that we're just looking at the piece of paper now. So it's A4 piece of paper, have it landscape, and then just fold that in half and try to be as accurate as you can and make a nice crease. And then if you open it up and just bend it the other way, you've got a nice firm crease then. I'm holding it like that so you can see the crease. Next thing, you're going to bring the end into that middle crease. I'm going to have to turn it so that I can see it. And so like that, and then do exactly the same to the other side. Bring that in. And then I'm just going to bend them the other way so that that's a nice strong crease. And then lastly, there's our creases. If I hold that at an angle, you can see the shadow of that. Got one crease, one crease, one crease. Last thing is to lift it up that way and make a final crease. So essentially what we have done is split that piece of paper into eight segments, which you can only just about see because of the creases. So get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Next is the pages. So turn it that way and cut just there along that middle section, just with use your paper scissors for this. If you want it very accurate, you could use your cutting mat and your rotary cutter. So we've now split it that way, and then we're going to cut that line there. So, straight up, and the same with that one. That now gives you 4 pages. So page 1 and 2, 3 and 4, 6, 7, 8. And then bend them in. And now you have a little book. And then if we go to the sewing machine, we're just going to stitch that book in place. Now, I recommend don't use a brand new needle. If you've got an old needle, just pop that into your machine. You're not sewing that many layers of paper, but it can blunt a brand new needle. I am just going to do 3 stitches. Oh, jammed it. And I'm just going to reverse, just to hold that edge in place, and then I'm just following that center line. the one time I get the machine in front of the camera and I've actually just knotted the machine. Oh, idiot. Where's my scissors? I thought I was going to have a blooper-free video. Clearly not. How disappointing. So that's probably just Mr. Tiny just going, you haven't used me for ages. Try that again. There. He was just being moody. Right, move him out of the way. So you now have, oh nice, I just realised my piece of paper's got a very faint dog footprint on it. Thank you. Anyway, back to this. So you now have 4 pieces of paper stitched in the centre, and I'm going to, yeah, there's my dodgy knot on the back, and then simply thread it or slip it in. Give it a wiggle. You can use card, although I wouldn't put card through a sewing machine, but you could use card. Just makes the thicker paper to start with. Give it a wiggle in, centre it up, and there we have it. A nice new maintenance book. And then where's my original one? What I'll do is I'll put notes in the comments box below the video just with what I did and what I've written down, but you can set this up in any way that you like. Once this is filled up, you can simply take the paper out and put a new set of pages in, or what you can do is, instead of using 1 piece of A4 paper, you can use 2, and then you've got a lot more pages. Depends how much information you want to record on the book. That is done, even with the little machine blooper at the end. And I need to just recrease that a bit. But you can now, if you've got, like me, you've got lots and lots of machines, you can create one. You can just use scrap fabric. You can create one for every machine that you have. What you can also do, just a suggestion, is at the point before you do your final stitching up, you could do some applique on the front, or you can hand stitch, for example, the model number, like 221, 28. You could do that on the front of the book. If you wanted, you could also create a second pocket. So you've got 1 pocket there, a second pocket there, to put things like scissors or that annoying little thing, that stitch ripper that keeps going missing, or needle threaders. You can add little things that go with the book as well. But ta-da, they are now done.